I did have a couple of run-ins with Bruiser Brody that I cherish this day. I remember one time I was in a JoJo's restaurant in St. Louis, and Chief Jay Strongbow was feeling, I'd only been there a couple of weeks, but I'd been in Japan just prior to going to WWF, and Chief Jay pulled me aside in the restaurant, and we were just having like dinner after the show, like grabbing a bite to eat. And he said something about what were my expectations about what I was going to do there, and what they promised me, what WWF, like Vince or George Scott would have been the booker back then, what did they had in mind for me. And all I said is what they told me. I said they promised me that I'm going to be a big star here, and that they got big plans for me. I'm going to work with all the top guys, and I'm going to be one of the big players in the company, and that they were going to push me and give me this big push. And I remember Chief, he asked me some kind of a question relating to that, and I said, well, if they wanted to make me Hulk Hogan, they can make me Hulk Hogan tomorrow. You know, if it's all how they push you on TV. And they were pushing, the Tonga Kid was getting pushed at that time with Snuka. And, you know, I could see that it really didn't matter how much talent you had. You could be a young guy and they could push you right to the top, you know. And anyway, he took exception to that. And I think it was just because of the way I explained it. And he kind of started to ride me about it. He goes, hey, this hard kid here thinks he's better than Hulk Hogan. And I go, well, that's not what I said. I was trying to correct myself. And he started to make a big stink about it in the JoJo's in front of calling these other wrestlers over to hear what kind of a lame ass remark I just said. I said, thinks he's Bret Hart, thinks he's Hulk Hogan. And I was getting pretty embarrassed by it because I was like, I didn't want to draw a lot of attention myself back then. And I was just trying to explain to them what they promised me. I'm going to believe whatever they tell me, you know, and so I was trying to downplay all this, and Bruiser Brody walked in to the JoJo's restaurant. I already walked past all the other wrestlers, walked up to me, and he goes, I want to shake your hand. And it was almost like an answered prayer, right in the middle of all this kerfuffle with Chief, who I later had so much respect for, and admired him a lot. But at that very first, because I didn't really know him that well either. I'd only been there about 2 weeks. And he goes, I just watched you in Japan, and he goes, I just love your work. And Brody put me over so strong and said all the nicest things about me, and he wished that he had gone up and worked for my dad, that he always loved my dad and loved the way my dad taught guys. And, you know, anyway, he said the nicest things about me and then left. And I remember Chief said something about trying to talk him into coming to WWF back then, and he said something about, WWF's not the place for me or something like that, but thanks for the offer or something. Give Vince my best or something like that, and he left. But I remember it was such a nice breath of fresh air. Then Chief stopped riding my ass, never said anything to me anymore about that kind of stuff. And I never saw Brody again until, it's funny, I remember I was at the Detroit airport. Me and Neidhart we must have had an all-night drinking thing with Neidhart in those days. I know we were all hungover, and Andre had got a cart, and we got off at the gate, and they picked us up in a cart, and they were driving us to the next gate in the Pontiac Airport or the Michigan Airport or Detroit Airport, and I remember we came around the corner, one of the corners of the airport. Going pretty fast on one of those little buggies, almost ready to tip over, with Andre right in front and me and Neidhart on the back laughing, and we passed Bruiser Brody, and I remember he waved at me, and he was laughing really hard. And they waved at us,